Good morning. What a day to be here.
I mean, really, where do we even start? The non-apology apology that Boris Johnson issued at PMQs. I had expected him to give a statement in advance of PMQs, as he's done previously, to sort of wrong foot Sir Keir Starmer, who was back out of COVID isolation to ask questions. But his statement actually came in PMQs. Before we discuss it all, let's refresh our memories by having a little listen to what the Prime Minister told MPs in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, I want to apologise. I know that millions of people across this country have made extraordinary sacrifices over the last 18 months. I know the anguish that they have been through, unable to mourn their relatives, unable to live their lives as they want or to do the things they love. And I know the rage they feel with me and with the government I lead when they think that in Downing Street itself the rules are not being properly followed by the people who make the rules. I have learned enough to know that there were things we simply did not get right. And I must take responsibility. Number 10 is a big department with the garden as an extension of the office, which has been in constant use because of the role of fresh air in stopping the virus. And when I went into that garden just after 6 on the 20th of May 2020 to thank groups of staff before going back into my office 25 minutes later to continue working, I believed implicitly that this was a work event.
Well, it continued for some time, but I think we've got the gist of it. Steve Adam, what did you make of Boris Johnson's, can I say the word apology with inverted commas around it?
Yeah. If I apologised like that in my relationship, I would be sleeping in the car again. It's amazing,
that was
isn't it?
exactly my thought. I thought if my husband came in with that excuse, be like, yeah, good luck, mate.
Yeah, I mean, look, to be fair, though, I know it's early in the morning, but I've just spent 25 minutes out in the garden having a drink with friends. I just like to get an early start to my work day.
Yeah.
If you can't tell the difference between being at work and not being at work, I'm not sure you should have the top job. It's not that difficult to tell the difference. And there was a line in the full version where he says, even though technically it may have come under the rules, oh, don't give me that. That's the opposite of an apology.
I think we know exactly who wrote that apology, and that was his lawyer. There's no question at all. That was lawyered all over it, wasn't it? We get words like technically. Bearing in mind, it was his own garden, so technically speaking, I mean, it's true. He's allowed to go into his own garden at any time. The question is whether that event was, or he knew it was a party going on in his own garden, or that he helped organise it. Now, later on, the spokesman for the Prime Minister did say that he did not know about and had not asked for that email and that Martin Reynolds, his principal private secretary, had sent, and did not know about that email in which it said, please bring a bottle of booze and let's have a party. So now, okay, it may well be. I mean, I think it's very, very believable that the Prime Minister doesn't read emails. I mean, I think we can safely say that. But who was the we that Martin Reynolds was referring to when he said we thought it'd be a good idea? But also, even the event that he says was a work event, even if there was no booze, that was still illegal under the rules at the time. You were not allowed to have any gatherings, work or social at all, that were not absolutely necessary. And getting a load of people, up to 100 was the plan, it ended up being, about 30 or 40, in the same place. In a garden, in a park, in an office, didn't matter where it was, unless it was for specific work purposes, and thanking people for having done a long shift ain't specific work purposes. So even that itself was not allowed under the rules. I don't think he ever even knew what the rules were that he imposed on the rest of us.
And that's the thing, isn't it? That if I'd done the same, I would be bad because I'd be breaking the rules, but I wouldn't be a hypocrite. To break the rules when you made the rules is terrible, especially if your excuse is, well, I didn't see the email about the rule. Well, the rules that you made, you didn't see the email that was going to break it. If you turn up to a place, if you spend every day going on TV doing a press conference telling us the rules, you know them. Surely you do.
Yeah, and we know ignorance of the law is not a defence in law anyway. I mean, and this is the thing. I mean, he admitted for the first time attending the event. Last week, he said, and earlier in the week, he said he couldn't he couldn't talk about whether or not he was at the event, and that became laughable. You must know whether you're at a party or not. And now it turns out, so he didn't know whether he was at a party or not. He needed Sue Gray, the civil servant investigating this, to tell him whether he was at the party or not. Now he says he was at the party, but only for 25 minutes, but he implicitly thought it was a work event, not a party. Now, I'm reliably informed by people who know these things that the people who are and let's face it, I think we all know the name of the person who is behind an awful lot of this. The people who are leaking these things to the Mirror and ITV, who've been leading the way on these revelations, have photos, have video evidence of not just this event, but other events. The Prime Minister had to admit he was there because there is photographic proof that he was there. He's very specific about those 25 minutes. Maybe for some reason, maybe that is the case. Who knows? We've got no reason to know whether he's telling the truth or not. But to say you didn't know anything about any parties at PMQs last week, to not knowing whether or not you were at this event or not, to being at the event but not knowing it was a party. The issue I have here is, even if that were the case, which is still risible, he was still breaking the law. And as you say, he made the laws for everyone else. But the crucial thing for me, again and again and again, is not that these were terrible events that were happening and how awful because people were dying. It's that they were making rules for us, which they didn't think were necessary for them. It wasn't just they were breaking the rules. They knew the rules weren't necessary. It was perfectly safe for a bunch of perfectly young and healthy people to meet outdoors, having a drink or not having a drink. They knew they weren't all going to die. And even if they got COVID, they weren't all going to die. And it was perfectly fine. But they stopped the rest of us from doing it. Even meeting more than one other person in a public park, which we were only allowed to meet one other person a week earlier from that. And we weren't allowed to meet in our own gardens. They knew those rules they imposed on us weren't necessary. And that is the bit that really gets me.
Yeah, hypocrisy is the bit that gets me out of it. And also, it was interesting to hear you use the phrase, whether or not the Prime Minister was telling the truth. I mean, why have we ended up living in a situation where that's just a bit of the explanation to a story? You should expect the Prime Minister to tell the truth and not be a hypocrite. Are my expectations too high? Yeah. That I'd really like that to be the situation.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few people, particularly on the Tory side, saying, look, it's absurd that a Prime Minister should have to resign over going to a garden party. But that's not what this is about. This is about having the most unprecedented authoritarian intrusion into our private, personal and business and work lives that we have ever had in this country. Hopefully the only time it happens, but I don't trust that. A massive breakdown of our fundamental civil liberties, the most authoritarian, outrageous treatment of us. People could still think it was the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, but it was an unprecedented in terms of infringement of our civil liberties. For the Prime Minister and his staff, and it's crucial for me, it's not just him. I want every single person who organised and attended that bash. I want a public apology from them, and I want them out of public life, and I want them out of public life forever. Because when the people in charge think the rules don't apply to them, it's not about a garden party. It's about what other rules do they think don't apply to them. These people are dangerous. These people are dangerous to our democracy, and expecting our Prime Minister and the people who work for him to obey the law and to have integrity and honesty, I don't think is too big an ask.
I think there's a level of culpability to those who were invited but didn't attend, because you still received an invite that was telling you someone was about to break the law. So the fact that you kept... Yeah, absolutely everyone. The invite bothers me as well, though. The fact that, yes, I'm upset by one rule for them, one for us, but the fact that they're so okay with it that they email an invite, at least pretend to hide the crimes. It's like receiving an official document inviting you to a bank heist. No, you should at least be apologetic and hide your malfeasance. The fact that it's the lying that gets me, and it's the lying that might be the reason he has to resign. It's like Al Capone and also Ken Dodd. It's the tax that got them in the end.
It is, yeah, that's often those things. Well, everything is now waiting on the Sue Gray report, which may be a matter of weeks. Keeps being pushed back because every time she's about to report, apparently another party emerges. I've no doubt at all in the next few days we will see more photographs or more evidence, more claims emerging, more emails. else. But then, of course, if there's a Met investigation, that gets put back as well. And then, of course, everything is really hinging on the 5th of May local elections, where most of the UK is going to be able to have a chance to vote. Question is whether Tories sit on their hands or whether they vote for an alternative party. That latest poll yesterday, 10 points ahead for Labour, still not breaching the 40% mark, 38-28. But that is the biggest poll lead the Labour have had over the Tories for a very long time. And given that the support that Boris Johnson has in his parliamentary party, if not the party and voters, is fundamentally only based on he's a vote-winning machine. If he wasn't a vote-winning machine or isn't one anymore, they will ditch him like that. But yesterday we did see very quiet Tory backbenches. I mean, very quiet indeed. And then it took quite a few hours before cabinet ministers started tweeting their support. Some very fulsome, the likes of Priti Patel and Nadine Dorries. Others really took their time and wrote the bare minimum. The likes of Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss, interestingly, took, what was it, 6-7 hours to write tweets of support. And they were basically just, he was right to apologise. Let's wait to see what Sue Gray has to say. We had 3 senior Tories, not a couple of senior Tories and another Tory, calling for him to go. That was the Tory leader in Scotland, Douglas Ross, committee chair William Ragg, and also backbench MP Sir Roger Gale. But there's no doubt that on the backbenches there is a lot of disquiet right now.
Because, as you say, that his usefulness, his function is having that support, having that Teflon ability to do anything, to fall over, to rugby tackle a 12-year-old, and people really like him. And it turns out we found the thing that severs that link. And it is feeling, and I'm not surprised that this is actually what happens, but feeling that posh entitled people do things and think they should get away with it while the rest of us should have a worse life is... It's one of the most British annoyances that there is. The whole nation hates it, and somehow he's fallen into the trap. I suppose eventually the only trap that you'd fall into would be the one that you can't climb out of. So it's probably not surprising that this is the one that eventually might get him.
Yeah, indeed. Well, we shall wait and see. I think a lot of MPs are waiting to see what their constituents make of this. But I have to say, just as an idea of what I'm getting, I don't live in a sort of Westminster bubble world. Most of my friends don't work in politics, and it's when they contact me, it's when they WhatsApp me with memes and things, and when they want to discuss these things. It really has never been a Westminster bubble story. This does affect all of us because we all remember what we were doing on the 20th of May in 2020, or more importantly, what we weren't allowed to do and the things we missed out on and the loved ones we didn't get to see. I don't think this is going to go away very, very quickly. For me, I think this is very much the beginning of the end for Boris Johnson. It may be a very slow death, but I think it is the end of his political career.